called to order. Are there any unscheduled citizens in the room? None, we move on. Okay.
You had your chance.
That's right. Is there a motion to recess to a work session?
I move to recess to a work session.
Second the motion.
Erica?
Logan?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Gelwitz?
Yes.
Drexel? Morrison?
Yes.
All right, in the work session, Frank, update on the Upper Gunnison River Water Concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
You're on.
I'm on. Okay. Yes, Frank Kugel, General Manager, Upper Gunnison River Water Conservancy District. Thank you for having me here on such short notice this morning or afternoon. Want to give a brief update on water supply conditions in our basin. Looking at the snowpack for the entire Gunnison Basin, we are at 56% of normal for this date. Some of our leading contenders for awards are the Butte Snowtel at 64%, Park Cone, which is at Taylor Park Reservoir, is at 77%, that's our leader. Porphyry Creek on Monarch Pass is at 74%. Schofield is at 70%, that's Schofield Pass. Slum Gully in the south part of our basin is at 60%. Other things I wanted to announce, I just learned today from Judge Stephen Patrick that he has appointed the City of Gunnison representative to fill a vacancy from Richard Hagan's resignation, and that person is John Prusek, someone that you know on your commission, so we're pleased to have John on board. Other things, we're deeply involved in our watershed management planning effort. That is something of the Colorado's water plan that the governor issued an executive order back in 2013. He issued, or based upon the plan, 80% of all priority streams in Colorado should have watershed management plans by the year 2030. So we are one of the early ones in the basin, in the state, embark upon that effort, and we're taking a different tack than has historically been done by involving agriculture, more so, and having them at the table. They've been more environmental and recreation-based management plans, but we're wanting to make sure that there's water available for the ranching community as we move forward with projected 20% or 10 to 20% less stream flow by the year 2050 and 50% more people by that date. So we have an issue of increasing demand and decreasing supply. So it's a double train wreck heading our way. So we're wanting to be prepared for that, wanting to make sure that all the municipalities in our basin are prepared for that. Part of our outreach effort for this planning procedure is to have a video, and I wanted to thank Russ Forrest for being one of the shining stars in our video. But we had a good cross-section of municipalities, ranchers, environmental interests on that video, and that should be coming out in the next and with that, and I think one last thing is we want to look for, as part of this planning procedure, looking for storage options. We really are lacking in adequate supply, especially on the smaller tributaries, Ohio Creek, Quartz Creek, Tamichi, to supply good late season water. And that's going to be an ever-increasing shortage as we move forward. And so I think we're going to be having conversations with Russ on, are there ways that the city and our district can partner on those efforts?
Just to acknowledge, that's good timing. I mean, we've had, I think, a good discussion with our water attorney and you, and she's definitely encouraged us to move forward with our due diligence around our water storage rights. And so, again, I think this is an opportunity. We may be able to leverage some dollars in terms of moving those projects forward.
And lastly, just wanted to thank the city for being a partner on the Colorado Communities Symposium. Mallory was at the workshop in Denver last week, and I thought it was an excellent presentation. A lot of it focused on climate change and what's looming in our direction. There's some great tools that come out of that, and forestry was another issue, energy efficiency. But it was a great symposium, and I congratulate the city for being a leader and being one of the municipalities in that effort. So, are there any questions?
Would you give us a rundown of who's on Upper Gunnison board now, please?
Sure, be happy to. So, in addition to Mr. Perusek from the city of Gunnison, we have George Sibley and Bill Nesbitt as the other representatives. Our current president is Michelle Pierce. She's from Lake Fork, Lake City. She was the chair of the Roundtable for 10 years, so she has a lot of experience in herding cats. George Sibley is the secretary of our board. Bill Nesbitt, treasurer of our board. And Kathleen Curry is the vice president. She's in Tamichi Drainage. Andy Spann is west of town. Brett Redden represents the Ohio Creek Drainage. Julie Valier is represents Taylor River. She's a civil engineer for the state engineer's office back in the 90s. So she's very knowledgeable. We have Julie Nania and Rosemary Carroll representing the Crested Butte. And we have Reby Hazard for the Cochito portion, Saguache County. Hope I didn't miss anybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I gave you a little extra time. Truck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just let us know too.
And next is an update on municipal court from Judge McDonald.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. 2017 was in the court. I am absolutely blessed with just a fantastic court clerk, Melissa McLeod, who's seated behind me at present. So it's just was a good year. We didn't have too many bumps, and everything went very smoothly. We've provided you our annual report. Numbers were down a little bit from the prior year. Those numbers are typically based upon the law enforcement folks. So whoever it is, and for whatever reason, if they're in our court, we'll take care of them. But really, it was an outstanding year. Really enjoyed working with the city manager. We've had a lot of communications over the past year. Not had occasion to reach out to the liaisons from council because really there hasn't been anything all that terribly exciting.
That's what we like to hear.
Every year. I would share with the council that I was appointed as the municipal judge for the city of Alamosa in December of last year. And so I am spending some time traveling to Alamosa. The only thing that I would share with this council about my experience now is that the San Luis Valley is in the throes of an opioid epidemic. And to the extent that this board and the county and the schools and the hospital and law enforcement can work together to provide education to our community for both prevention and for the education of our youth as to the absolute that heroin and fentanyl, they are a blight upon the land, and it's real. And while we are blessed here in Gunnison, a great environment and great people, it's here, just not to the same extent. And it's the scariest. I met with the sheriff, Alamos County Sheriff, last week, and he shared with me, I think intentionally to scare me, but just some eye-opening statistics. Heroin is rampant, and I suspect it's the same for you all, but I was that heroin was like the boogeyman. It was something evil and dark that was in a, hidden behind a rock that we didn't really know about, but it's there. It's here. And so to the extent that I would share that one insight into their community before it's part of our community, I would say anything we can do, we should. And to the extent that I can help on behalf of the city, I would be willing to be a part of that process. So, again, court was fantastic in 2017. It really was a good year. We're very excited with our new city clerk. Tara has been helping us out as well. So it's a great time here in Gunnison, but things aren't so great pretty close nearby. Alamos is a wonderful community, but the opioid epidemic is a scary thing. So what questions can I answer from the council? I'm skipping words.
I was just looking at the chart. I don't know if you can say they're trends, but certainly animal citations look like trending up, and conduct is trending a little bit. I don't know if you could say statistically it's trending, but
Based upon the data we have, we probably cannot draw statistical conclusions.
I would guess.
I would guess, and I had a chat with Captain Wilson today, and I would suggest that a lot of what we might look as a trend is really, in essence, the varying personalities of the classes at Western. So each class has a different personality. Some are a little more, maybe a little more outdoorsy. Some are a little bit wilder. And on the years where the numbers go up, that might be a reflection on the student.
Are marijuana enforcement issues is still included under drugs?
I would imagine so, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Wonder if that might be something that we want to separate out, since we're looking at, as council, looking at our marijuana licenses, and maybe that's something we want to try to keep separate. It's just a suggestion for you to think about and maybe discuss it with others that you might be important.
Sure, and I would certainly be happy, Missy and I would be happy to sit down in a work session to discuss that issue further, Mr. Mayor, if that was something that was the council's pleasure.
I would submit drugs is marijuana, because we really don't see drug citations into municipal court.
Other than tobacco.
But tobacco has its own category.
So any other class 1 drugs?
They don't come into municipal court.
Those are all felonies and they go to county court.
Okay. All right. What?
Is caffeine.
Ah.
Canned air.
Oh. Okay. All right. And anytime that you feel that there's a section of the ordinances that we need to review, as you come across maybe some situation, please share that with us.
Well, certainly if I perceive that there's something that I deem kind of irregular, I would have a chat with Ms. Fogo before anything else. And really, I would like to thank the council because at some level, having her in the courtroom has made our process far more efficient and I think much more meaningful in terms of dealing with our defendants. So not too long ago, we didn't have the city attorney in the courtroom, and I'm very thankful for that.
Anything else for council or staff? Ben?
I might interject that I was at the City and County Managers Association conference last week. The Colorado Attorney General's office was there conducting an opioid survey, and I do have the link for that. They're just trying to really identify what the impact of that use is, both state level and in our local communities. So if you would like to submit any information to the Attorney General's office, I have that link, or counsel, or anyone else needs that link, I'd be happy to share that.
And just by way of anecdote, in the courtroom, I generally will ask a defendant after they pled guilty, okay, what were you thinking? Well, why did you do that? And there's a lot of petty thefts, and the constant refrain is, or the reply is, I needed money to get some drugs. And some of them will say, well, I'm a heroin addict and I needed some money. But they won't say it in a way that you might expect, like, you know, this is this terrible burden I bear. It's matter of fact. It's, hey, this is who I am. I'm a heroin addict. And it's not something that I would have expected to hear more than once ever, but I hear it all the time. And a lot of these folks are sober at this point and go through programs. There's a lot of resources in Alamosa that are really outstanding. But just the matter of fact that hey, I'm just an addict. It's the way it is. Really, it's a scary time to be a parent. So,
I'd be curious to see what sort of collaborative efforts they're putting together on municipal and county level. If you have any insight from your conversations, or
so they have, the municipality is working with restorative practices for juvenile diversion, and they've got programs for adults. The interaction between the county and the municipality, especially in terms of the court, is a little bit strained. Past relationships, things will be improving going forward, but it's not just Alamosa. I think that Monte Vista and other communities are all struggling forward, and I look forward to learning more about how they're going to approach it in a collaborative effort to address the entire communities, and by that I mean the San Luis challenges.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and
Thank you,
appreciate your time.
Council members.
Thank you, Jim.
Good luck in your parade.
At this time, I'll call us back into regular session at 4:19. At the beginning, I want to acknowledge that I made a mistake. Last night, there were 3 people council members in attendance at the Gunnison Trails dinner, and we did not issue proper notice on that. I apologize for that error and did not realize that it had happened until that time.
But I presume you did no business.
In fact, 3 of us were not together in a bunch at that point. So, but I did want to put on the record that. So, next up is the minutes from January 23rd.
We have comments. You want to have a motion?
Motion and then changes or alterations.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the January 23rd, 2018 City Council meeting.
Second.
Discussion.
What's that on there?
You omitted?
I was omitted, and I was definitely here, so let's put me back on there.
You're here.
And I was there.
Made several motions anyway.
Any other changes or corrections? Then, without objection, the minutes as corrected?
Miles,
Yes.
Gilwix,
Yes.
Drexel,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
so carried with correction.
Is ordinance number 1, series 2018 for first reading.
I'll introduce ordinance number 1, 2018, and ask that it be read by the city attorney, please. Entitled.
Ordinance number 1, series 2018, an ordinance of the city of Gunnison, Colorado, amending Title 8 Business Regulation, Chapter 850 Marijuana Business Licensing Regulations, Sections 850-20, 850-80, and 850.
I move adoption of ordinance number 1, series 2018.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Basically cleans up some language concerning the transfer of a marijuana license, so it is clears how that is supposed to work. Erica?
Gowitz,
Yes.
Drexel,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Logan, Miles,
Yes.
so carried.
Next, we are joined by Director of Library Services, Drew Brookhart, and he has a request for us to consider if we want staff to work with him in the future.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Specific project.
In general, to Drew Brookhart, Library Director, Gunnison County Libraries. In essence, the district is working towards expanding programs and services. Over the long term, that will require improved facilities and funding. In the near term, we're looking at ways to leverage existing resources. And specifically, we're looking at cost-effective ways to improve the district's portion of the Van Tuyl property. So we're hoping to start a conversation with city staff about two things related to that. One would be sponsoring a grant that requires local government. So, that grant would help us construct an outdoor classroom facility, restroom facilities, a trail that wound its way through that 5.6 acres. As a story walk, we would host programs there. It would be available to the community in general as an amenity when it wasn't in use by the library, adjacent to the schools, so they would also be a partner in using that facility. The other part of that is the library district is equipped to handle facility maintenance. Our facility in Crested Butte is maintained by town of Crested Butte staff. Facility down here in Gunnison is maintained by Gunnison County. So part of that conversation we would hope would be the city contributing some maintenance for that park-like, expansion on the Van Tuyl property.
So Drew and I have had the opportunity to chat. I think topics, the first one Drew just acknowledged is maintenance, and again, it's about just maintenance of our existing facilities. So talking further about how that would work with something new. And the other piece is ensuring that we're not competing against ourselves for future GOCO grants. And again, we'll be talking in a second about with Lazy K, where we may want to pursue a GOCO grant. So just talking further about timing and what sort of outside dollars, what sort of grant dollars maybe we want to pursue with that. So again, we're not competing with ourselves.
Yeah. And my understanding is that normal procedures for GOCO includes some match or in-kind equivalents so that it's there as well. So that would be in the discussion with staff.
Right. And from the library district's perspective on that, we have restricted funds that were donated just in dollars above and beyond the land that are, donor intent to improve that property for library services as part of the discussion. So that money could be directed towards any match on the GOCO. That would fit well with what Mr. Van Tuyl wanted us to do.
What would be the additional workload, I guess, maybe Dan, your answer this, but above and beyond what we currently maintain with the Farmar and the Van Tal Trail?
I think the answer is we don't know. We haven't had that discussion.
Right. If we're looking at daily maintenance on a facility and a restroom, we don't even have a maintenance person for our facilities, let alone.
Yeah.
So we might have, chat with Drew, we might have the money and we might need to support somebody at the end of the day, but we
Right.
haven't had a discussion at that level of detail.
Do the GoCo grants go specifically to infrastructure, or do they?
Yeah,
Like
they want to
personnel.
build something
Yeah.
versus maintain something.
It has the standard non-administrative use clause.
But I think, Drew, again, you were just kind of announcing the concept, council kind of.
General support from the city council for the idea of improving that piece of the Van Tile property in a way that expands library services to residents and helps just make the community a nicer place.
Well, I think from what I've heard with the vibrancy initiative and all of that, there's been some excitement and momentum around if we were to build a bigger library facility that, you know, brick and mortar actually houses books, would be a better idea to house something like that downtown where it's more accessible to all residents. So I really like this plan because it's still a great use of library space for events, etc., but still leaves the possibility of, you know, relocating the library somewhere downtown.
Yeah, I think at this point, this is all a very broad discussion, and we're looking for opportunities to do more without limiting ourselves. So grant funding for something that doesn't, require a lot of money from the district is a good thing, and leaving all the options open for in the future is a good thing. So,
Does anybody object to your question?
Oh, I just can't let this pass, but I want to bring up the alignment of the street, 11th Street and Court Street. Any development on that property, I would like to see a concerted effort to realign, or aligned, I guess, not realigned, because I live in that area and see, so I don't know that there's accidents, but there's certainly a lot of confusion for people onto Court Street from 11th Street, and so I want to bring that up and bring that before staff
And that's
again.
something Steve just brought
I
up.
think, I think that's the point. I think part of this project scope could be parking, curb improvements, getting all that cleaned up, getting the fence, cleaned, making it fit into the neighborhood.
Well, they'll remove the water snakes that's a attraction for our youth in our community.
Okay, we'll leave them. We'll leave them alone.
Water snakes underneath the corner there. They spend a lot of time there. Relationships involved with them.
Well, you've already got your first name.
Sign there.
So I
I guess
guess,
the little girls are attracted to that too for some reason.
Girls like snakes too.
Well, because the girls carrying the snakes up the street, so.
No, I'm in support of collaboration, and I would second, when I first saw this on the agenda before reading the pack, alarms went off thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to build a library, over there. And so I was pleased to see that this is more like a first step of creating some life, some energy, this idea of some structures and some places that can be used by the whole community. I like that. I think it's a good use of the space, the property. And I do believe after going through this vibrancy initiative and OVPP and all of these things we've been involved in the last few years that, libraries belong in of a town, and they do provide, that sense of place and community. So I'm still interested in future about the library, staying close to our heart of downtown.
Great, that's good feedback.
Okay. So without objection, staff is directed to work with you.
Thank you.
We look forward to it. Thanks.
Next is near-term implementation, which took up the majority of our packets. So, Russ?
Great, thank you. I think we're still looking good on time. With the completion of your strategic, now a 2018 budget, wanted to bring back to you and really have a discussion about two things. One, really beginning to create a schedule and an agenda for ourselves in terms of how do we begin to have discussions around some meaty policy topics, whether it's implementation of the vibrancy plan, housing initiatives, economic development. And so we have begun, and I would just consider this an initial starting point. We have approximately $261,000 that, and that was kind of a function of what was left in your budget after we factored in grants and other things for strategic initiatives. So that's a good number for planning, but also one of the things we saw as we talk about sticks and bricks and sidewalks and something like Ohio Street, that's not a lot of money when you're actually talking about construction. So I'm going to put a little bit of thought, and I would call them rough numbers, but we also realized as we began to put numbers, we need to go out and get some additional information. So two things. Wanted to do a schedule with you of discussions, and you'll find that on page 20 of 47 of your packet. And you just have a number of dates, and they correspond to the description of strategic results that you've identified in your plan. And so, for example, on February 27th, we wanted to bring back to you a discussion of what we've discussed to date in terms of communication. Also wanted to provide some examples of branding exercises. We'll share with you some pricing that we've heard and get some direction from you on this area. And there's also an interrelationship between the area of communications, branding, and also a previous strategic result associated with wayfinding. Another key thing is broadband. We're going to have a substantive discussion. I don't know where it's going to go tomorrow with other partners in the valley around broadband, and want to bring back to you kind of the results of that. The ISPs will be in the room and rolling out their sleeves with us. And I won't go through all of these, but I just want to give you 13th. That's also a pretty hefty discussion where in the next couple of weeks we'll be meeting with others in the valley that we sat down with, and further refining what we call this pipeline of housing projects. So sharing that with you, and also some thoughts on next steps with Lazy K in the future, and also I think a tough discussion about housing policy and bringing back what we discovered, what we learned from, if you desire to move this RFP around housing policy. So you see at the beginning of an agenda for the next several months going into July of policy topics where we would be proposing to dedicate some time around these discussions, get direction from you, take appropriate next steps. So maybe I'll just pause on page 20 of the packet. Any thoughts on that scheduling? That's really just a scheduling question. Anything you see we're missing? And again, there's other things, that's not everything. There's other things as we fast forward, but it's really just keeping really our feet to the fire in terms of moving these actions and keeping an eye. And the other thing I'd kind of share with you is this is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So
It will keep your feet to the fire, that's what I was thinking.
getting in, so I personally, I like this. Tempo will be fast, but it's something, and this will inevitably happen. You'll come back from a wonderful conference and initiative, a new idea, which I would please encourage, let's be opportunistic and take advantage of opportunities, but it'll be a discussion where we'll be in a position potentially get delayed or pushed back if you really think this is a new initiative. So this is also kind of creating a little bit of us as an organization, so that we get things done, we execute on things, and the to-do list isn't constantly changing. But at the same time, things will come up. It's just we'll need to have that discussion of what changes, what comes off, or what gets put back. So any questions about the schedule? The other thing I want to acknowledge too that's maybe a strategic thing is we've got a huge action in here that's labeled as the comp plan. And you have an RFQ that comp will be putting out, and we'll be sharing that before it goes out on the street. There is a lot of meat in that, the way it's framed. And I'm not saying it's big. And so strategically what we're suggesting is, are there some things we can actually do, physically build, affect, that's tangible before we initiate another big policy discussion? So that's something I think we just acknowledge that, we're looking for some things we can actually build and do and affect in 2018 before really jumping into what would be a big, meaty policy discussion. That's
some Band-Aids or smaller projects that are already sort of identified in the current plans.
correct. We certainly, again, had some discussions around that with the Vitamin C project this morning, and you see those projects essentially in here. So any questions about that schedule? Great. And then I just want to acknowledge on page 21 of 47, again, beginning to put some numbers associated with things. You see a number of things. We have budget dollars in, and beginning to look at some form of allocation. I think there's something, you see a relatively big number that's evolving quickly, proposed number approximately 50,000 in this area of economic development. And I think there's something really opportunistic. You got to be the judge of it with the ICE lab to really begin to, Gunnison and the Gunnison Valley is a great place to live, work, learn, and I think there's a message around selling the assets that we have. And I just chatted about a similar campaign that here in Palisade, where they're really trying to brand, the authentic assets of the community, and say, hey, if you a lot of people are moving to Denver. If you want to live in a mountain community, here's a message, and an authentic message around why Gunnison can be a great place to not only live but bring your so anyway, that's just the beginnings, and I think this is still fluid and will evolve and change and will be opportunistic. The next was on page 22, and this is where we began to think about, are there some places where we can begin to accelerate our thinking and really go out and get some price, not asking for a commitment of actually pulling the trigger on a project or a design or construction, but recognizing that we need some pricing information. And one of the things that's certainly coming to the top as we talk to Western about the strategic planning they're doing and from the Vibrancy Project is, can we get something rolling on Ohio Street? And so what you see is an RFP that David Gardner has prepared to go out and get some pricing for the design. This would be both an engineer and probably a landscape architect to roll up their sleeves. And again, I want to be clear about the scope of this. We've really been focused on a connection from Western to Main Street, but also, as we've discussed it, and this may be in terms of getting additional outside dollars, particularly with the Safe Routes to School program, is connecting this and creating a really nice east-west connection from Western to Main to 11th Street in our schools, and a connection then to Van Tile. So really creating a focus on that connection from Western to Main Street, but then also creating a template that could be utilized to take that next step of creating and connecting our downtown to also 11th Street and strong east-west connection. Our thought is that we look and see what we can do in terms of actually affecting that change and getting through the getting acceptance on that, and I think we also want to work with Western on that. And we've had, the mayor and I have had a chat with the Chavez about engaging a Western student or a Western class us with the design. Can we do something creative with the lighting, solar lighting on that connection? But get them actively engaged in the project, since they're really the ones that I think kind of started from a safety standpoint of feeling safe and secure walking from Western to Main Street. I think it has a lot of other value in that, but actually soliciting them as a partner in this. So that's one RFP. You see a draft of that again would be giving us pricing on design, and we would bring that back to you and say, hey, this is the scope for it. What do you think? Do we want to tweak it, change it, and then move forward with that? The other piece that we've discussed with the Planning Commission is, and Steve has already gone out and done a little request for information, I would call it, Steve, and got some pricing on getting an independent code consultant. A lot of you have met him. He's one of the ones that said, hey, I'm really interested in this. I've already got to start on it. Probably could be pretty cost effective. But taking an independent look at our zoning code as a whole, and we've also been having a discussion about related policies with that effort, such as utilities, tap fees, what are other things we do that generate costs, barriers, or provide incentive in addition to our zoning code. So you see an RFP for that, and that's something consistent that we've talked about with Planning Commission. Don't know what that would cost, but I think we have a sense, and we would be going out on the street for that if you're comfortable with that. The other piece that hits a couple of different points is Lazy K. And again, this would be some really good work with CU Denver. It's given us a great starting point and kind of a list of amenities, but taking that further, along with this notion of creating and having a chunk of land at Lazy K, and that was part of the discussion with Lazy K. It maybe was not the emphasis in that Lazy discussion, but it was part of the discussion, was to have a housing project associated with that. This now, and I think with your direction now, is can we push a little bit more on housing, create of land in Lazy K for a housing purpose. So this scope, as it's written, would say, okay, let's further develop the thinking that has already occurred on what area do we really need for a park, and we're hoping it's that area, and we'd really be focused on that area to the west that butts the Gunnison River, and land do we really need to reserve to create a viable housing project. So for the park, it would be going deeper into that park design and getting us close to actual implementation and construction of a park. And for the housing component, to be, okay, here's the chunk of land that we don't need for the park that we could reserve for a housing project. And again, with that, if we fast forward, we need to ask the voters for approval of, if this is the chunk of land, can we have the flexibility, if needed, to sell that land in the future? But we have a very clear, sustainable, successful plan, and we have a game plan for actually how to affect that. The other component of that is we also want to ensure that we can provide the right-of-way connections, which I believe was part of the purpose of buying this land, ensure that we've secured the right-of-ways for the roads through this parcel. So again, this would simply get the pricing for these next steps for that design. You're not making a commitment, actually moving forward with the project, but this would give us pricing. The other piece that I think we began writing and took a little pause on was IOF Park, and again, that information again this morning, along with doing some more flags and some more color on Main Street, which maybe is a partnership with the chamber, but it's not a plan. It's really how do we place, design some amenities on the west side of the park. So instead of the pond, a fire pit and a water feature and some lighting that's tastefully done in the park, along with, is there an idea also utilized for South Main in terms of taking the paving on Virginia and turning that into a space that's more conducive to events, but still functional for parking. And so it's some specific design. It would involve a little bit of public engagement. And so that's one where we kind of took a little step back from, may or may not be a landscape architect. We're really looking at some specific features in the park. We're not looking at redoing the park, but really implementing some specific features. One, if you think that's something you want to push on and move forward on, that we'd also like to bring that back to you and take a look at that before issuing that. So those are some specific next steps you see for those 3 requests for information and 2 RFPs. If you would like, we can put that out on the street and get some pricing. Again, there's no commitment of implementation, but we have some better information on cost. There's other information in this, and happy to respond to other questions. And simple questions are scheduling, that looks okay, and then with these 3 RFPs, are you comfortable with us putting that on the street and getting some better information?
I would just recommend, and I said this at the meeting this morning, that especially for the IOF park, RFP is including some kind of verbiage about, utilizing local craftsmen or artisans, as far as design elements and things like we talked about today. What? Oh, not a mushroom.
And we'll bring that back to you.
Yeah.
We didn't write that one on yet, so we'll bring that one.
Sounds like you have a go ahead at this point.
I think we do.
And move forward. At this point, any other official business for us to conduct
Can I
tonight?
just make a comment on the codes? I hope there'll be a concerted effort to look at the time expediency of putting together whatever, if it's annexation or development, whatever, so that these things can be, as I say, a little more expediently as far as time is concerned, so that.
And you're talking about process time, not just
Yes.
getting to the finish line with this
Yeah,
code.
in other words, just, yeah, and, yeah, so. All right, at this point, without further comment, we stand adjourned. It is now 4:48. Does anybody need a short take before we have council discussion? I could use. Okay. Yeah, hey, well, when you've been sick, to go so far, get there, so. Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get bugged out.
It's interesting.
When in Rome.
Hey, opportunity now.
Well, Western men, if ever the card falls like
They got to win 3 out of 3. The tough ones.
travel, they have to games.
So at least, well,
Yeah,
I would
that's something we got.
I would say reasonable inference. I think that they pick up Highlands and Couple on the Lieutenant and Mines.
And a lot of people think it's 100.
The Mines, yeah. So, I think they got a signature there.
Yeah, that's all the way up there.
No, it's New Mexico Highlands.
That's right, Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's not a bad trip for me.
Yeah, we still have one.
Maybe for those two.
Yeah, so they got,
Because it seems as though they reserve the right to approve.
So Dan shared with you the history on that.
season in.
Strings connected on what we could and couldn't do, and then maybe buy it. I think there's still, there's still comments on
On which property was on that?
Iowa Park.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So that
Yeah.
could be the next housing project.
Oh, actually, we're. Skyrise. Yeah, and we'll have a little park place underneath it, yes. Called the Rainbow Room. No, it's not the intent.
Sounds like you need a marijuana facility for somebody to do something.
No.
Do we have any restrictions because of, isn't that a lease?
No,
We did find
But
out.
there are restrictions.
yeah, but there are restrictions on it.
It wouldn't get you very far.
It was like,
I did my
it was
own.
like I was giving them newsflash.
Yeah.
It was an interesting discussion. We'll come back and do a
I didn't
quick vote.
know.
Whole thing? No, I'm sorry.
Here, I have a boring fleece on.
I don't know anybody.
I could just get some aluminum foil around me.
Oh, you mean to be,
She's telling me I'm way too boring looking.
but purple is royal.
We're gonna give them a.
Right.
Him in just a minute, but he's like, I have the perfect thing.
Of course he did. Harlan.
Yep.
All right, let's rock and roll.
Oh, great. I want me to spend money. Oh, and at least they got my name right. That's cool. Oh, gosh, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Ah,
Did you find that at the special place?
people have left. I can be surly now.
With my daughters, and she got a new one.
No, it's only Gail. Oh. I'm sorry.
On mine it does.
Shall we get through in this management? You're up. Or, attorney, I assume you have nothing? Okay, see, how about that? Moving right along.
So something the mayor and I have been chatting about with our counterparts in Crested Butte, and also I've chatted with the manager in Mount Seavey, is would you like to break some bread at your Palisades Valley?
Always.
And so we're happy to do that. Would a lunch venue be better than an evening?
Yes.
Depends.
Okay. So this is one, we'll probably create a number of alternative dates. And I mean, it'll be a challenge to schedule two busy groups. But we'll come up with some alternative dates that work for, we think work for both boards, and give you plenty of time to respond.
Okay.
So, and the other, next, once we find the date, is there an agenda or not? You know, do you want to break some bread? You know, are there a couple of topics you may want to chat about?
Housing, you mean?
I was gonna say, there's a couple big ones.
Maybe one of the pass from last week, but we're not directly involved. Although I did find out we were named and referenced in the acquisition of that property, but we're not a decision maker. So that
Oh,
was
we are?
interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't
in other
seen
words-
paperwork
There's other parts of the agreement that the city was.
that we were referenced in.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. Anyway, so we will on that. The other thing I wanted to acknowledge is we sent a notice to the paper left, and the notice for the electrical rates did not make the paper when Erica and Tara checked. So, yep, we can get upset, but we simply have to change the date and fix it. So the hearing was March 13th, and now will be April 10th, correct?
Correct.
And along with that, we have gotten, it's a good question in terms of the actual rates, in terms of why are commercial rates moving faster and higher than residential rates? Why is there that? And as you recall, this is complex, and we have a mean. So working with David, he's going to do a nice, simple, layperson understandable paper that explains that.
Probably I'm going to try to the questions I know you're getting, that we're getting a few of them too, and then try to answer that and send them to you in email form so you'll have some background on why the rates were structured in the manner that they were.
Yep.
I'll give you some, and I'll put some graphs in there too that kind of give you an indication of where we are versus everybody else.
I just want to acknowledge we've been a cooperating entity, which really has met one meeting on the Signal Peak project. And as you heard, BLM did have a meeting on, I think, the 31st of January. I think they really made a good faith effort to try and respond to the interests of both Gunnison Trails and the other interests. There is a deadline of February 16th. Purposely, I tried to avoid putting you on the spot to be lobbied about do you support it, not support it. I don't have any comments prepared, but I just wanted to acknowledge that date is coming. Yes, I think they're making a good faith effort to listen to all the interests. Not everybody's probably happy, but I think they're making a good faith effort.
Well, if everybody's slightly unhappy, it's probably the best.
I think this is a case where that's very true. And then finally, David Gardner, Keith Robinson, and I have also been specifically looking at a licensing agreement with the snow plan and chatting with a number of our customers, particularly on Tamichi, and we're kind of thinking about that in terms of, is this too far to require a license agreement? And so I think we're going to host a discussion with some property owners, and we may still keep that as an option. So if you have absolutely no space to put snow, that's an option. But if you're moving snow into into the road where we already have windrows, that might be fine. But if you're putting snow in the middle of the street, if you're putting snow where a windrow was just removed, well, that's not acceptable. That's more work for us. You're potentially creating a safety issue, and we may just go straight to a citation. So we have not had an overwhelming level of compliance. The police department has knocked on doors to get license agreements, and it may simply be a bridge too far. But I think we want to sit down with people, have a conversation. We got a real issue. There might be options, and so I just want to acknowledge to you that's something we're looking at, and want to have some conversations with some Tamichi property owners. And that's all.
And I think that's, I've tried to tell people this is an experiment. It's an experiment. This is the first try. We want feedback.
We are changing some behavior in a good way, but actually getting people to come in and do a license agreement, which sounded very simple, and demonstrating insurance may just be a little too much bureaucracy. But we're going to have a conversation, and we'll learn more from that.
I think we can still get what we're looking for in the end.
Yeah. And we've had sort of a double whammy. No real significant snow to really see what people are doing.
Unique set of
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
We're going to save some money. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Staff comments?
I guess I would just suggest we'll send you the link out for our live streaming for tomorrow, and then if you could just take a look and give us some feedback and let us know what you think, and continue to work through this. So thanks for your participation tonight.
The only thing I would ask, and this is a reason why some municipalities don't do, sometimes you begin to act a little bit differently because maybe it's just another forum. And
We were on cable before.
Exactly.
Nobody noticed.
Please don't change.
We get professional makeup in
Yeah. You know, Bosley may sponsor us something. Our Squire. Okay. Enough levity there for a second. I do have one quick question, staff. You mentioned that there was a meeting with Region 10 on telecommunications.
There is tomorrow at 1:30 if you'd like to join us.
Broadband.
And where's,
County second floor in the conference room.
okay.
I know at least one of the ISPs I think would welcome some additional elected officials participating.
All right. Who wants to put us to sleep first?
Ooh, me.
All
Sounds
right.
fun. Let's see. First off, last week there was an RTA meeting that again was one I could not attend. I was attending state championships for my high schooler who's for 2 days in Denver. But I did have a meeting with Scott Truex and Anthony Paponi the day before RTA. So we met for about an hour and they both me on what's going on, but I'll let Jim give a more full and complete report because I don't know what the board actually decided on. I know what the agenda was, but I'm not sure how everything rolled. But on the RTA front, new, I think probably since the RTA meeting, United came back and let them know that we're going to have basically 520 more seats this summer than we thought on that Houston flight. We were supposed to have a smaller 50-passenger plane fly in, and we just luck of the draw. We got a 70-passenger plane now, which is awesome. We're not paying any more on MRG, so that's a bonus. So get your family to come on and
$100 off right now.
And there's $100 off right now. Yep, through the TA inbound, or is it outbound? Out.
Yeah, out.
Outbound.
through mid-April.
Uh-huh.
It's April 12th.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's news. Are going to, did you decide CNG bus? Is that the one that's going to be?
Well, they set a test truck up on the 10th, and they ran it over monitored days numerous times, had no issues with that. Did some reprogramming on the CNG bus here, straightened that up. The only thing that, let's see, the gear ratio of the training they suggested, it had a different transmission of the test truck they used. So.
Yeah, it sounded like a lot of our CNG issues were
Straightened up.
and also, there was a learning curve for the drivers because it is a different kind of bus, and the way the transmission works is it drives differently than a regular diesel bus. So, what else? I was going to mention Signal Peak. You already did. I'm headed to Denver tomorrow for CML legislative workshop all day on Thursday, and then and then the next day, policy committee meeting until 2 o'clock the next day. So all CML for the next couple days. I did attend the winter blast through Gunnison Trails, which was, it's always a nice event. And our downtown vibrancy meeting this morning that a couple of you are already at. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay, who's next aboard?
I'll go next. Kind of a lot. So basically, I went to the Colorado Community Symposium in Aurora. Was that last week already? And it was incredible. I was hoping to have something put together to email out because it was just a big conference and it was really amazing. I'd say 2 minutes, I guess, just quickly. I was on a call yesterday with Energy for Colorado and a bunch of stakeholders in the energy sector, Colorado Energy Office. We had Manitou Springs on the line, John Messner and John Cattles with the county. Energy Smart Colorado is looking to put in this week for a grant through the EPA, and they're looking for, they really want to focus it on Gunnison Valley, and it's basically environmental justice. It's an environmental justice grant, so just furthering the work that we're doing through GB Heat currently, which we've already committed $20,000 to. There's no match for the grant, which is great. It's just, here's a bunch of money to help people in need. And so I'm really excited about that, and that came out of the symposium. And it's really addressing rural needs, and they would pilot policy in the Gunnison Valley that they could then replicate in communities around Colorado, around energy efficiency in our homes. So that's really exciting. A second thing to come out of the symposium was I would really look at joining the Colorado Compact of Communities and see what that means and would require of us. The county is already a member, and I think it'd be great to get our other municipalities on board. They've got a lot of resources. I think we're a little behind on sustainability, and I think it would really be an important thing. And we'd have the model to look after of, what we would need to do to make that happen. The county actually won an award at the symposium for our CNG buses, which was really exciting. It's cool that Grand Junction is using methane capture to power their transportation system, which is amazing. Also, a sustainable tourism and outdoor recreation meeting Thursday the 8th, and we basically really cemented goals for the committee around sustainability, and the BLM awarded Gunnison Nordic their Volunteer Year Award for BLM Colorado, and they're in the running for the National BLM Volunteer Award, which is pretty cool. They have something like 50,000 volunteers over the history of the committee or whatever, so that's pretty neat. Let's see. I'm really going to write an email and send it all to you because there's not enough time to talk about it all.
And I do see our driver was peeking his head in, or our chariot, our fire truck chariot.
It's 508. So
Yeah, one, Bob? We have Region 10 met on Monday the 29th, which was strange off of our Thursday date, but there was some concern about DOLA grants and how much time it takes to process them. I'm not sure I understand the whole thing, but they approve the grant and then it takes a long time to...
6 months.
Yeah.
Well, there's two issues with the DOLA grant. The first one is you have to have it signed by the state controller's office, otherwise you can't incur any expenses. So that often takes a number of months between award and actual getting the grant agreement. And then also there's the covering of the cost because they're reimbursement grants, and so their reimbursement time has also been an issue for some communities.
And so are they looking into that?
I don't know if DOLA's looking into that. And
Well,
I felt it's varied in terms of their processing time. The 40-60 match and how you kind of juggle that is something you got to be very of.
Well, yes, it had to do with the building and the season.
To be fair to them, their planning grants, 25K, have been really easy, to be honest. It's the 40-60 balance, and when we submit bills, the bigger grants do take a while to go through their bureaucracy.
Okay.
You got to be careful to expend money or commit money until it's executed.
That was the concern that I heard. And then Susan Thompson, who's a commissioner out of Hinsdale, thanked us for
offering Eric for his service to their community. So take that as a note that Susan was appreciative of that. We, the 5,000 matching small changes grant for Hotchkiss for street lighting and decorations. The Business Loan Fund loaned over $1 million last year, the calendar year 2017, with 19 transactions. But well, the year before, the Gunnison Valley had over loans coming from the loan fund to our Gunnison communities. And this year, we only had 20,000 out of $1 million. So our businesses aren't borrowing money from the loan fund.
Or woke up the other counties.
The mustache. And again, the Blue Canyon, the up that road, they now have the $30 million needed for the work, but the design work has yet to begin. So we'll probably see in 2020.
Possibly for 10 years following.
Yeah. And there was some talk of actually shutting down 50 like they did Cottonwood Pass, and that went down very quickly, I'm glad to say. And then had a lot of discussion with the Housing Foundation concerning land banking and also ideas of ways to use partner. Lots of things going on. Thanks, Russ, for your input into that. And so it's exciting to see what's on, I mean, both ends of the valley on. And so hopefully we'll hear some things being settled instead of just talking about them in the near future. That's all I had.
Anything else, Jim?
Just make it really quick, is the bus stop at Country Meadows and Riverwalk tentatively will be completed end of June, as long as Riverwalk gets their stuff. That's pretty much everything else covered.
I have one highlight to share. There's other things that could go through, but in working with the communications group on campus, there is an opportunity for next year in terms of sustainability and planning of doing joint with the university. And there is also a request that Russ is investigating in terms of supporting composting and seeing how to best assist the university in terms of doing that. So it eventually will be a letter of support for their composting operation to include meat and protein. So, but we have a couple of questions to follow up on that. So that will conclude us for tonight. Stand adjourned.